The judge's voice rang out like a crack of thunder. "Remove it right now," he barked. "This is a courtroom, not a parade." The gallery fell silent. Every eye in the room shifted toward the man standing before the bench. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't even speaking. He just stood there, still as a monument, tall and squared-shouldered, in a crisp blue uniform. His white gloves were folded in front of him, and pinned to his chest, catching the soft overhead light, gleamed something the judge would never understand: the Medal of Honor. He hadn't come to speak. He hadn't come to fight. He came to stand quietly behind the family of a fallen brother in arms, a soldier whose benefits had been wrongfully denied. But here he was, being ordered by a judge to strip off the very symbol of that fallen brother's sacrifice. The man in the uniform wasn't just a veteran, he was a tomb guard, one of the few entrusted with the sacred duty of guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington. Day and night, in blistering heat and bone-chilling cold, he had walked those 21 solemn steps in silence, in memory of the nameless heroes who gave everything. His back had never once turned from duty. He knew what sacrifice looked like. He knew what it smelled like. He had buried friends, carried burdens no courtroom transcript could hold. And on that morning, when he pinned that medal to his chest, it wasn't for display. It was for remembrance. He didn't wear it for honor. He wore it for the fallen. And now, standing in that courtroom, all that meaning was being reduced to unauthorized insignia. The judge raised his voice. "I said remove it." The words came sharper now, laced with the arrogance of unchecked authority. The tomb guard didn't flinch. His chin lifted just slightly, his posture still as carved stone. "Your Honor," he said calmly, "this is not insignia. It is the Medal of Honor, awarded in combat. It is not for decoration. It is for remembrance." The judge scoffed and leaned forward. "This isn't Arlington. You're not guarding a tomb here. You're in my courtroom, and I'm giving you a lawful order." The tension in the room turned thick, like air before a coming storm. The uniform had caught the judge's eye, but it was the quiet strength behind it that rattled him. This was no ordinary confrontation. This was a man of silence meeting a man of power, and not backing down. All around the room, the tension began to ripple. In the back row, a young Marine half stood from his seat before a bailiff raised a hand to keep him still. A few older veterans shifted in their chairs. Some clutched their hats tighter. Others stared down at their laps, silent, simmering. Still, the tomb guard didn't move. "With all due respect," he said, steady as ever, "you may command this courtroom, but you do not command this medal. That belongs to the sacrifice of others, those who cannot speak today. I wear it for them." The air thickened. No one made a sound. No one even breathed. The judge's lip curled in frustration. He leaned back in his chair, eyes flicking toward the bailiffs. But they too seemed hesitant. Even they understood. This wasn't just a matter of courtroom decorum. This was a matter of dignity. From the gallery a voice rose, old, cracking but firm. "Your Honor," said the man as he stood, his hands trembling, "I am a retired colonel in the United States Army. That man has earned the right to wear that medal in any courtroom, church, or street on this earth." His voice echoed with something stronger than protocol. It carried the weight of 1,000 fallen names. "You're not just asking him to remove a pin. You're asking him to forget every brother he buried to earn it." A second voice joined in, then another. Veterans, widows, sons, daughters. The courtroom rose to its feet, not in rebellion, but in reverence. Some stood in silence. Some nodded, their eyes wet. The tomb guard said nothing. His presence alone was enough. The gallery, once spectators, had become a wall of witnesses. A woman stepped forward, her eyes filled with tears, her hands clutching a worn photograph. She held it up for all to see. Her son in uniform, smiling like he had the whole world ahead of him. "He served with that man," she said quietly. "They were brothers. He didn't make it home." Her voice caught in her throat. "That medal, that honor, that's all I have left. You don't get to erase that." The room held its breath. Her words weren't angry. They weren't defiant. They were sacred. The bailiffs, the very men meant to enforce the judge's order, lowered their heads. None of them moved. Not out of fear, but out of solidarity. They couldn't bring themselves to drag honor out of a room just because power said so. The judge slammed his gavel so hard it cracked against the wood. "This is a disruption," he roared. "Everyone sit down." But no one moved. The authority he clung to so tightly had slipped from his grasp. His face flushed red with frustration. He motioned toward the bailiffs again. Still, no movement. The silence in the room wasn't passive. It was active, defiant. A kind of silence louder than any protest chant. It had weight. It had soul. And it was telling him one thing. Today, you don't get to win. He was the highest authority in the room, and yet he was completely, utterly alone. The tomb guard looked the judge in the eyes. Not with hate, not with anger, but with the calm of a man who has seen true consequence. "Your career," he said softly, "made decisions. Mine was carved in blood and silence." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle like dust. "You may strip my words from the record, but you will never strip the meaning from this metal." Then, without drama, without spectacle, he turned and walked out. The doors didn't slam. They opened softly. But in that quiet, a roar of respectful applause rose. Brief, powerful, and uncontainable. Not celebration, not rebellion. Just a simple, solemn acknowledgement. He had won something far greater than an argument. The clip hit the internet before sundown. Phones were out. Social feeds exploded. Within hours, the moment had gone viral. Not because it was shocking, but because it was sacred. Veterans across the country stood up. Gold Star families shared their stories. Journalists picked up the thread, and the headlines spread like wildfire. Judge orders Medal of Honor removed. Tomb guard refuses. Comment sections filled with support. Petitions sprang up overnight demanding the judge's resignation. From every corner of the country, people were saying one thing loud and clear. You don't silence sacrifice. Within days, the pressure became too much. The judge resigned, not for misconduct or scandal, but for something deeper. He had failed to recognize the sacred in the solemn. He had tried to treat a Medal of Honor like a name tag. And in doing so, he had shown the nation just how out of touch power can become when it forgets humility. His name won't be remembered for rulings or legal brilliance. It will be remembered for that moment, when a gavel tried to overrule a nation's heart and failed. And what of the tomb guard? He went back to Arlington, back to his post, back to silence. His footsteps resumed, 21 forward, 21 back, precision, discipline, memory. The world moved on, but he kept walking, every step carrying the weight of those who could no longer walk for themselves. He didn't need the world to thank him. He didn't need a microphone or a camera. He had the silence. And in that silence lived the names, the faces, the sacrifices, untouched by power, unshaken by pride. He stood for them, and he always would. If this story moved you, let us know where you're watching from. These stories matter because honor matters. Drop a karma in the comments, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. But more than that, carry this story with you. Tell someone, pass it on, because real honor, the kind carved in silence and sacrifice, doesn't need permission to be remembered. It just needs someone to stand up and say, this mattered.